Very good evening, sir.
Good evening.
Very good evening to all. I, Dr. Utkarsha Gavare, cordially welcomes you all to the first day of 3 days faculty development program on scientific writing, use of different statistical tools, softwares in research work. Today we have with us Dr. VPS Arora, sir. So before inviting him for his talk, I would like to give a brief introduction of sir. Recently, he was a professor emeritus at Sharda University, Uttar Pradesh. He has earned his bachelor's and master's and doctoral degree with majors in agricultural economics and minors in economic theory and mathematics and statistics from GPB Pant University of Agricultural and Technology, Pantnagar, the first farm university of India. He served the same university for over 33 years as assistant professor, associate professor, head of Department of Agricultural Economics, and Dean, College of Agribusiness Management. He was the founder Dean of College of Agribusiness Management and its flagship programs of MBA Agribusiness, first of its kind under the ICAR State Agriculture State Agriculture University systems of the country. He successfully undertook international consulting projects of IRRI Philippines. Professor Arora has over 46 years of professional experience in academics at reputed national and global institutions of higher learning. He has a huge biodata. So now, without wasting much of time, I would like to call Dr. VPS Arora, sir, to take over the session. Please, sir.
Before I start, may I know the composition of the audience? Who are the audience?
Sir, we have a mixed group of audience with research scholars, assistant professors, and all the scholars from background from universities and other faculty members. They have joined through YouTube Live. This.
Okay, fine. I got it.
Okay.
Because it will facilitate me to orient my presentation. So before I start speaking, let me just share the screen. Some problem in sharing.
Sir, if you are facing some issue, you can share your PPT with me. I'll share it from our side.
Okay, I'll do that.
Okay. Sir? Hello? Dear participants, kindly wait for some time. Our speaker is facing some technical issue. We'll be back within 5 minutes.
Is it okay now?
Yes,
Am
sir.
I audible?
Yes, sir. You are visible and audible, but your screen is not visible yet.
That I shared with you.
Okay, sir. Okay, I'll just check.
Actually, it says that host has disabled screening. That's why I'm unable to screen. Enable me to screen first.
Yes, sir. You rejoined actually. I'll ask the team to give you the rights. Just a minute.
Can I screen now?
Just a
Disabled.
minute, sir.
Still disabled.
Yes, the right. Sir, now you can try for sharing the screen.
Is it visible now? Screen is visible.
Yes, sir. You have started the screen sharing, yet the screen is about to visible. Yes, it is visible now. You can
Okay,
start. Yes, sir. You can
right.
start.
I'm sorry that I wasted 10-15 minutes of yours.
No issue, sir. No issue.
The theme of today's faculty development program is to expose you on the research and particularly the important aspect of the research, that is how do we use statistical tools or what tools are available, plus how the publication is done effectively of this. Now, I always start in the research methodology program with this saying, I keep 6 honest serving men. They taught me all I know. Their names are what, why, when, how, where, and who. These 6 persons made me understand what is research and how research is conducted. So these are the 3 key words when you are doing research. What is to be done, why it is to be done, when it is to be done, or when a particular task is to be done, how it is to be performed, where it is to be done, and who is to do it. Because research is always a team job. Why do we do research in an academic institution? That's very important. The background says that for any academic institution, if you want to evaluate the performance, growth, or its recognition, it's always in terms of research output, how much grant you have received, how many patents you have registered, and how many publications you have, and that too in how many cited journals. These are the things that you have that today's world of academic institution you are very much evaluated in terms of the research output. And for faculty, individual faculty member also, their name, fame, and growth depends on the qualitative engagement in research. How many consulting projects do they have? What research grant they have received? It's not that you are doing research, but what sponsorship you have, what type of collaboration you have with industry or the market, and the industry relevant research what you conduct. So the quality and relevance of research undertaken by faculty member depend on the extent of scientific method, system, and process. What is research? Some people say research, like in Hindi, that you have and search. No, that's not the correct way. That you are doing the something what has already been done. It's the systematic investigation towards increasing the sum of knowledge. So one of the intent of research is to expand, to add value to what knowledge already exists. It's an endeavor, new or call it, which is done by scientific study of a subject by a course of critical investigation. And another important thing is a systematic means of problem solving. So research is aimed to problem solve. In few sentences, research means finding answers to the questions. Research is a systematic search for truth. Through research, new and original information, ideas about the world we live in are obtained. Research is search for knowledge. Research is defined as a scientific and systematic search for information on a specific topic. There are 5 key characteristics of research. That's what we say, the random search. No. In research, it is a systematic, that you have a research process. It's a logical, you have a process of induction and deduction. You have every finding, every recommendation duly supported by evidences. You can generalize your findings and you can replicate the methodology that you have. So 5 keywords, characteristics of the research: systematic, logical, empirical, deductive, and replicable. I divide the entire research into 3 C's. First, the conceptualization of research, where you decide the topic, you decide the problem solving, problem statement, you decide the objectives, and the basic framework, the hypothesis, other things. That is the conceptualization in that. What, why, and who. Then the actual conduct. What, where, and how. Suppose it's a management research. Who are the clientele? Who are the respondents? Where they are and how you do it. So conducting research. And in fact, the statistical tools are maximum used at this stage or this particular aspect. Though some statistical tools are used in first and third also, but mainly on the second, when the research is conducted, the statistical tools are used. Then the third C is communicating research. What, why, and how. So, friends, you should always remember, when you are doing research, you divide into 3 parts, and each part is important. Each part has a significance. And if anyone is missing, your research is useless and it can't be made use of by anybody. So you should have a proper conceptualization, proper conduct, there's the process, and then you should communicate it to the clientele or the target audience. In case of research techniques, the number of statistical tools are used. whether you use it in sampling. Say, for example, who are the respondents to be selected? In management, people say we have a purposive sampling. We have, say, sampling which is target oriented. But for a research methodology professor or experts, randomization where generalization is possible, unless you are doing a case study, you have no utility of that. Otherwise, for case studies, okay. But if you have selected 5 retailers, 5 wholesalers, why? How? What is the rationale? The findings of not much use. Only in case studies, such type of things are relevant. There are various statistical models, though there are operation research tools also, which are used, linear programming, the quantitative techniques and other things. You have number of things that we use, but from statistics, you have number of techniques that you are using in research. You have descriptive statistics, you have inferential statistics, you have hypothesis testing, you have parametric test, non-parametric test, analysis of variance, correlation, regression, OLS, LPM and logit regression, limited dependent variable, where Tobit and the logit models are used, discriminant analysis, principal, component, and factor analysis. I'm not going to teach you all these tools because it requires a semester to teach all the tools that what is there. I'll just briefly introduce these things to you. The first is the descriptive, which extensively used by every researcher, whether he's a biologist, whether he's a statistician, whether he's an economist, whether a management expert or medical scientist. Descriptive statistics is the basic, sometimes in the conceptualization, sometimes in the conduct, sometimes in the, say, even the interpretation aspect, or when you are writing a paper, that again you are using the descriptive statistics. You know, statistics, it's a scientific method of collecting, organizing, analyzing, and interpreting the data. Always remember that statistic that you are using in research is a scientific method. A scientific method of collecting, organizing, analyzing, and interpreting the data. So always, whether you are conducting experiment, whether you are getting the observation, you are collecting the information. You organize them, analyze them, and interpret that. So in that case, statistics is the basic for any research that you conduct, whether in the medical science, whether in the biological science, whether physical science or the behavioral science. There are 2 basic subdivisions of statistical methods, descriptive and inferential. Before coming to the descriptive, you should know what is data. Data are measurements and observations that are collected as a source of information. And quantitative, and you can assign the numerical value to it. You have a qualitative also. The color of the, say, object, taste of that, these are the qualitative that you have. Just see this tabular presentation of the data which is used. You have qualitative data. And in qualitative data, you have tabular methods, you have graphical methods. In tabular, you have frequency distribution. Say, suppose you have a respondents, or let's say you have a male and female. So how many male, how many female? Frequency distribution. Then a relative frequency, percent frequency, and cross tabulation. This is the tabular method that you use in qualitative data. Graphical methods, bar diagram, pie diagram, and there are others also, number of methods. Then you have quantitative data. Again, tabular and graphical. In tabular, frequency distribution, relative frequency, percent frequency, and cumulative frequency. And graphical, dot plot, histogram, ogive, stem and leaf display, scatter diagram, etc. So there are a number of graphical methods used. Variables are quantification of events, people, and places. Suppose you have that heights of plants. That height of plant is a variable. You have 100 plants and you are measuring their heights. So that is one variable. You have number of grains per pots. So that is one variable. You have the yield per plant or per hectare or per square feet meter. So this is one variable. So this is how that variable is used in research. These are the quantification of events, people, and places. In order to measure observations, it may be categorical, nominal, and ordinal. That nominal means your exact number you can give, or ordinal. Suppose you have a color. That case, you have light green, dark green, and like that. These are the ordinal. Non-categorical, numerical value or metric value, like that. Then variables may be continuous or variables may be discrete. Suppose you are taking weight of a particular object. So in that case, it may be 1.05, 1.005. So it's a continuous. So you are having that in 1 meter, you can divide it in a number of subdivisions of it. That's a continuous. Discrete variable, where you can't divide. Suppose you are counting the number of persons. These may be 1, 2, 3, 4. You can't have a person as 1.1, 1.2. So these are the discrete variable. Always remember that you use this type, although there are other types of variables also that you have. Now, as I told you, the frequency distribution. Frequency distribution is a tabular summary of data. That's you have, how many you have of particular variable. This should not be overlapping. So 3 steps are there. You determine the classes. Say you have students of age group of 5 to 10, 10 to 15, 15 to 20, like that. Or you have class 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Or you have primary class, secondary class, higher class, intermediate class, and higher class. So these are you divide in the classes. And then you determine the width of the class and then define the limits of this class. For example, you have one particular, say 30 students are there. And in these ages are written here. Now this is to be converted into frequency distribution. Now this is how you have divided the classes, 18 to 25, because you have 18 is highest and 57 is the, 18 is the lowest and 57 is the highest. So you divide that. And then you count within 1825 how many, within 2633 how many, and cumulative means up to 33 is 13 plus 8 21, and like that. This is how the frequency distribution is done. Then the graphical representation can also be done of this. Then you have other measures of tendency, center tendency. Friends, these are things which you must have already been exposed, but these are frequently used in the research. You have mean, which is also known as average. You have a median, and then you have mode. Mode is the most frequently occurring, that is the mode. Say you have the list 54 like that. So which is more frequently appearing. You have the mean, that's the average, So not going to detail that. Then you have measures of dispersion, which summarizes how these values are scattered over the different things like that. And it's a range, quartiles, interquartile range, variance, and standard deviation. These are the measures of dispersion. That's how they vary from each other in class, individually, like that. So range, quartile, like that. You have first quartile, second quartile, variance, standard deviation. In fact, the standard deviations is under root of variance. The square root is the of standard deviation is the sample variance. How that one particular observation varies from the mean of that particular variable. This is how they obtain the variance and standard deviation. Then you have inferential statistics. Say you have observed in a particular class, 10 students you have taken, their marks you have obtained, or their hobbies or their taste have been observed, and then you multiply, so you infer it for the entire school or entire class. That is the inferential statistics. So based on the sample, you infer for the entire population. You have a census. Suppose in India, we have every 10th year a census conducted where 100% families and population is covered. But for other things, food habits, it's not possible to cover the entire population. So you cover the sample, and based on the sample, you multiply it or you infer it for the entire, say, population. Say you have a sample, and based on the sample, you say derive what happens or what exists in the population. Why sample? Less time consuming than census, less costly to administer. It is possible to obtain statistical result with sufficiently high precision. There are a number of statistical tools which exist, which give very precise estimates of the population based on the sample estimates. But sample that you use should be random. Random means it is identified without any bias, without any inference, without any force. If the statistical tools are used to collect particular sample, then only you will get unbiased population estimates. So in this simple random sampling, every object in the population has an equal chance of selecting. Objects are selected independently. Samples can be obtained from a table of random number tables like that. And based on this sample statistics, you get the population parameter. Say, suppose you, based on the sample, you say that per day, per capita, the consumption of fruits is 100 grams in particular society. So, but you have taken for sample, and based on that, you derive for the city, for the say district, or you derive it for the state, and like that. So that inferential statistics help you to know the population parameters based on the sample statistic. Why do we say statistic? Because it is based on the sample and you have estimated it. Population parameter is not estimated. It is the actual thing, and that is evidence that has been derived. Then you can derive the conclusion based on that. Because population, that you draw the sample, data collected, statistics, and then you infer the parameter. Because you have taken a sample from population, estimated the data, and using the statistic, you infer for the parameters for that. We want to learn about the population parameter, but we can only calculate sample statistics. This is how you have the estimation. You have identified those red persons, and then based on that, you have estimated the population parameter in terms of weight. Then you have different sampling distributions. You have the normal distribution, you have Poisson, and like that. So there are a number of sampling distributions which are used which help you in estimating the parameters. You should always keep in mind how much error has been committed in particular sample estimate, and you have the standard error for that. Now, another important aspect in research is the hypothesis testing. You say, you may have certain hypotheses in your research, and these remain. How do we define the hypothesis? These are the tentative results of your research. And how these become result? After testing it. So we measure a sample mean to learn more about the population. On average, the value of sample means will equal the population mean. Because this is the average, that is unbiased. Larger the difference between the sample and population, more mistake has been committed. That you have the normal distribution curve, and the population average is 1000. This is how you have been estimated. So you conduct this. So I again repeat you, hypothesis means what you are expecting from your research, what you are intending to get from the research. And in that, you are hypothesizing that if you are giving a scholarship to students, the number of students per class will increase. This is the hypothesis. Now, this you have to test. This is the hypothesis testing. You say that if the midday meal is provided in the schools in the villages, the enrollment will increase by 20% or 30%. This is the hypothesis. And this hypothesis is to be tested like that. So what you do in that, you have the sample, because you are not doing for the entire all the schools of the country. You are having only few schools which are taken as a sample, again random sample, compute the sample statistics. Based on that, you go for the population parameter. So there is a fair chance that both are same or both are different. If both are different, means there is some problem in your estimation, some problem in the sample collection. This is how you get it, through hypothesis testing. That you have the, say, a random sample, mean is 20. But your hypothesis was that age should be average of 50. So that way, that you have to compare it, hypothesis testing. So hypothesis testing is an act in statistics whereby a researcher tests an assumption or presumption regarding the population. So I tell you that you are expecting that if midday meal is provided in the schools in rural area, the enrollment of the children in rural schools will increase by 20% or 30%, whatever is that. This is the presumption that you have. Now it is to be tested by sampling, and this is how the hypothesis testing is being done. Now, suppose you have a different cases. You expected 20% increase. You are getting, based on the sample, 25 or say 15. Whether it is statistically different or not, it is to be tested. And this is statistical tests are available, which are used whether that 25 and 20 are statistically different. Whether the 15 and 20 is statistically different or the same, like that. Purpose I already told you. There are two types of hypotheses in statistics which are used in research. Null hypothesis. It is a statistical hypothesis that states that there is no difference between a parameter and a specific value, where you expect that the sample mean and the population mean both are not different. That is a null hypothesis. There is no difference between two parameters or statements which assert that there is no difference between the sample statistic and population parameter and the same like that. This is what is being done. Then you have the alternate hypothesis. It states that existence of difference between the parameter is there. Null hypothesis, we assume that population statistics, population parameter and sample statistics are the same, no difference. Or let's say rural village, say rural schools and say urban school, there is no difference of the mean. That's one. In alternative, you assume that these are different, that the population parameter and sample statistics are different, or one sample and another sample, these are different like that. So you make the research hypothesis. These are very important slide, 5 steps of hypothesis testing. First, you should state the hypothesis very precisely, very clear, say unambiguously, and there should be no meaning of it, the very clarity of that. Say, for example, tax rate cut by 5% will increase the tax collection by 20%. That's the clear cut. There is no confusion in that. That if the government reduces the tax rate by 5%, then the tax collection will increase because the number of persons who will be say paying the tax will increase like that. Then you have to find the critical value. That the what difference? As I told you that whether 15 and 20 they are different or whether they are not significantly different, the statistically different. You have to identify critical value. And the critical value, you have the number of statistical methods to get this critical value, which will decide whether, say, below this or above this is significant or insignificant. Compute the test value, compare it with that, say, critical value, and then you reject or accept the hypothesis like that. These are the 5 steps in hypothesis. I put it in a different slide. You have population, you decide the critical value, that is level of significance, conduct a study, collect the sample statistics, measure the data, and test it, and then finally make a decision whether it is statistically different or same. Again, it is tested at different probability level, 5%, 1%, 10%, and like that. This is how it is being done. There are maybe different type of errors in hypothesis testing, which are of type 1, type 2 errors. I'm just skipping these steps. Sum up for this. You have to have first the problem definition, clearly state the null and alternate hypothesis, choose the relevant test and probability distribution, as I told you, that whether this is significant at 5%, 1%, 10%, or 20%, like that. Choose the critical value, compare test statistic, critical value. Does the test statistic fall in a critical region? Do we accept or reject the hypothesis? And like that. This is how it is being done. There are different types of tests that we have. Parametric tests and non-parametric tests. In parametric tests, that you intend to decide hypothesis based on the distribution that you have. And you have number of tests available like that. Depending on first the type of variable that you have, whether it's a continuous or categorical. Again, continuous means you can measure, the weight is there, length is there, but categorical that you have, male, female, you can't have. Number of persons, number of cows, number of buffaloes, the categorical like that, survival like that. So in that case, you have different exposures like that. You have two groups, one group in comparison, and the different type of tests that are available to us. For continuous t-test, one sample, two sample, pair t-test, one-way ANOVA, or Pearson correlation regression. These are the things. And that non-parametric test that you have for categorical, chi-square test, kappa test, logistic regression, KM plot or log rank, Cox regression like that. You have different type of tests that is there existing like that. So whenever you are conducting research, particularly the quantitative type, you should have mastery over these or get the expertise from the statisticians about that. In parametric test, you use quantitative data, continuous variable, used when data are measured on approximate interval ratio, don't show, follow normal distribution. As I told you that your t-test for one sample, two sample, unpaired test, ANOVA, Pearson correlation, regression, z-test. Analysis of variance. In fact, when you are comparing, the variance is caused by what? This is what is done by the analysis of variance. The variation that you have in two samples, is it because of what? What for it is there? Say, I'll just give you the sources of variance: total sum of square, error sum of square, and residual sum of square. This is how it is being done. Say you have this is the ANOVA table, which I'm not explaining, but here that error sum of square, residual sum of square, the total sum of square. So you have a different sources of variation in your regression model. That's how it is being done. The takeaway for ANOVA is that collection of statistical methods and their associated procedures. The analysis of variance is used to compare three or more groups. That K, the variables are more than or equal to 3 that you have. Results of variation among the different groups is displayed like that. You have that type 1 error, you reject hypothesis. Non-parametric test that you have, as I told you, that chi-square test is there. These are the frequently used non-parametric tests. Chi-square, sign test, Wilcoxon rank sum test, Crookes-Hull, Friedman F statistics, and Spearman rank correlation coefficient. These are being done. Well, I skip. So, this is another technique which is frequently used in research: correlation regression. Regression is that concept that if height of a plant is there, what is contributing to that? The factors you identified, and to what extent the nutrients are contributing, water is contributing. So you identify the factors which are determining that. Correlation, how the height of a plant and the yield from the plant are correlated like that. So suppose you have the regression, Y is the yield. Yield is determined by, say, nutrient that you have applied, and you have the other things also that's there. Irrigation given. You have dependent variable, you have the explanatory variable that you have, or independent variable. Correlation is bivariate. That's always between two variables. Its value ranges between +1 and -1. Positive correlation, negative correlation, zero correlation, like that. You have number of regression models that you have. Simple regression, multiple regression, multivariate regression, top-bit regression, seemingly and non-linear parameter, binary regression, bivariate. Let me just tell you the basic difference between the two. In linear regression model that you have, the first category, you have a continuous variable. In non-linear, you have one, either it exists or it doesn't exist. Plant will survive, plant will not survive. There will be, this particular disease will be found or not found. So both are estimated. That is the dependent variable. Dependent variable means yield from the crop. Yield of the crop means the 10 quintals, 10.1, 10.5 or 20 quintals. It's a continuous variable that you have. Non-linear parameters that you estimate in regression, what we have the logit, probit, and other models. There you have a categorical variable. You have bivariate variable, where you have either of the two options that you have. Either it exists, it does not exist, like that. So in that case, a candidate will be elected or candidate will not be elected in election, like that. So that's how we use these techniques in that. Well, I have some slides for all these models, but I'll skip all this and stop at this to have the questions, because in this particular, probably this is the first lecture that we have in this particular faculty development program, and I expect number of questions about the research, about the technique that you have. So I stop here and open it for the audience to put questions to me about the research methodology that you have. I stop sharing and put your questions.
Thank you so much, sir.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was really a very wonderful session, sir. Thank you for your valuable time.
There's no question?
Sir, there are few questions, but actually we are running out of time. I'll just mail you the questions of the participants so you can answer them and we can forward it to them, if you don't mind.
No, I will not mind. As a professor, why should I mind?
Okay,
So,
sir.
some of the question will be answered by fellow panelists.
Yeah. The
Professor,
major question,
Professor
I would
Kaur
like.
is there.
Okay.
Okay. Anyhow, so you pass on those questions to me, and I'll be giving answers to them.
Sir,
Karsha, you can ask the questions. I can wait.
Okay, sir.
Sure,
Okay,
right.
ma'am. Okay, thank you. Thank you. The repetitive question which the participants are asking, I would like to ask them first. Sir, now the research scholars like MSc, PhD scholars, they have to submit research paper, means published research paper before submitting their thesis.
Right.
So the query of the students is that how should we manage that? Because many reputed journals will take more time to publish the papers. So what is the method, or which journal should be selected? What are the criteria? Anything? What would you like to suggest on that?
Let me tell you that selection of the journal where the paper is to be published. First thing is your domain. the topic that you have, it should be relevant to you. That is, suppose you are a man of management, so it should be related to management. Suppose you are a person of HR, it should be related to that. If your paper is in botany, it should be related to that, number one. Number two, what is the quality of your paper? If you have a good quality, then you should always submit paper in a, say, Scopus journals or the journal which are well cited. Because it's a lifelong achievement that you have. Today, it may take 5-6 months extra, but that paper may make your career, it's a transformation that way. And if you have selected it, I should not use the term, the third-class journals, in that case, that particular article which you have published may be of very good quality, but it will always be rated with that. So whenever you are publishing it, discuss with your peer group, discuss with your experts, discuss with your guide that which journal will suit me, which journal will suit this particular topic. So that should be always be there. But never go for the easy, say, option that you pay 2,000 rupees or 5,000 rupees, your paper is published. Well, that quite often, that particular journal will not give you dividend in your life. That's what the question is.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for giving the information. Now I would like to end your session here, and I will.
I understand that it's
definitely
already. Because I understand that it's already 6, so I should quit and then hand over to the next panelist.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much for inviting me. But I'm sorry that initial 10-15 minutes, because of glitches that you have, was lost. Okay, thank you very much, and good luck to all the participants. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you once again. Now, moving towards our next session, we have with us Dr. Simarjit Kaur ma'am. So, before starting our session, I would like to give a brief introduction of her. Dr. Simarjit Kaur is a gold medalist in MPhil Botany, received a PhD from Punjab University in 2006. She has more than 20 years of teaching and research experience and currently holding the position of Director IQAC and Dean of Students Welfare and Head Department of Life Science at Rayat Bahara University, Mohali since July 2008. She is the editor of Rayat Bahara International Journal of Multidisciplinary Research. She has been guiding a number of PhD, MPhil, MSc and undergraduate students under her guidance. She has mainly international and national research papers. She recently got one industrial patent granted for developing culture medium for Boletus edulis. She is recently honored with Dr. APJ Abdul Kalam Puraskar 2022 for Best Scientist in the field of research and development by IIMT College of Engineering, Greater Noida, in collaboration with ICAR-ASRB NET Ayog, Delhi. Dr. Simarjit is honored with Charles Darwin Award 2022 for contribution in environmental sustainability, catalyzed by ICAR, organized by AEEFWH Just Agriculture and Guru Kashi University. She is also recipient of Eminent Educationist Award 2022 by KTK Outstanding Achievers and Education Foundation, New Delhi, Ministry of Corporate Affairs, Government of India. She is honored with Award of Appreciation for long outstanding contribution in the field of microbial sciences by Microbiology Society, India. Her contributions and achievements are not ending. So now, without wasting much of time, I would like to call Dr. Simarjit ma'am to take over this session. Please, ma'am.
Thank you so very much, Dr. Utkarsha, for such a nice and wonderful introduction. I would like to share my screen. Just let me know whether it is visible to everyone.
Yes, ma'am. Your screen is visible.
Okay. Let me put it on the slideshow. Okay, so well, today I will be discussing about how to draft a research design, like what we say is a strategy to address the research problems, right? So I hope this is going to be very much relevant with our honorable previous speaker of the evening. He described everything so beautifully by citing examples, but I would like to make my students aware of what is research and how we can prepare an efficient research design, right? So that they can perform their experimentation in a better way and to get the efficient results. So when we say why we need to do a research, right? It is already there, it is everywhere. So research means it is to search again and again, right? So it is like a thing that everybody has been seeing or thinking what nobody else has thought. So you need to give your thinking a different way so that you can come out with a different kind of the findings. So it is a systematic approach for getting and confirming the new and the reliable knowledge. Obviously, we are researching it. We are searching it again and again. So work is already being done on the same thing. But yes, we need to come up or we need to look at the same problem with the different perspectives and to come up with the different kind of the findings, right? So purpose of the research is to gain a new knowledge, and that new knowledge that must be reliable, and we need to validate that data or that information. And most of the time we say research is an accidental discovery. I was doing that thing, I was doing that kind of experimentation in the laboratory and it happened. That is serendipity. That happens sometime, but trust me, research is not an accidental discovery. It may occur sometimes, as I said, in the structured research process, and it can take the form of a phenomena which is not previously noticed. But yes, this is not an accidental discovery, and it is not a research data collection. Most of the students or the researchers, they feel like they have collected the data, like they are into the field doing some kind of surveys, interviews, or they are doing some kind of experimentation in the laboratory, and they are having the data now, right? So they feel like, okay, 60 to 70% of our work is done. They are visiting the library, they are reading the literature, they are going through the published work, or they are going through some documentation or studying the reports. But research is not only data collection, that is just an intermediate step so that they can get the reliable knowledge, right? So collection of data, that is just one part of the research process. But once you have collected the data, that doesn't mean your research is complete. So it is not only to find out the published, the research papers in the library. Research is about the synthesis. It is about the analysis, right? Once you are having the data, that leads to the interpretation of the data, right? Once the interpretation of the data, that means now you are analyzing the things and you are presenting your data in some different form. So just reading the literature or reviewing the literature or the collection of the data, that is not the research. So if I say research is searching for the explanation of events, phenomena, relationship, like what, how, why the things are occurring, is there any kind of the relationships or the interaction among the various parameters. So if I say the research is a very planned and managed process. So process is very much creative, that we will be discussing later on. But I always say it is a circular in nature. The moment you say you are done with your research work, that will lead you to more questions, right? So your research is never complete. That's why it is research. We keep searching again and again to get some new kind of information. So what is the objective of the research? Why we are doing it? To find out the hidden truth, or to find out the things which are not discovered yet, or sometimes to gain familiarity with the phenomena or to achieve some certain new insights into it. And sometimes to portray accurately, like if I say the characteristics of a particular individual or a situation or a group, when we say there is a survey kind of study or the descriptive type of study, or sometimes we need to understand the relationship among various parameters, like how these 2 parameters or 3 parameters or certain parameters, they are correlated with each other, like the presence of one is affecting the presence of the other. And most importantly, to test a hypothesis of a causal relationships between the variables. So when we do research, definitely we gain certain kind of knowledge. So it inculcates scientific and the inductive thinking. Trust me, when you are into a research, you are putting your mind into the research only. You are being very much creative. You are into the new kind of things. You are using your brain to find out the certain methodology so that you can come up with the different kind of the results. So once you are into a research, you get that scientific temperament, right? And you have that creative or inductive thinking. And it promotes the development of the logical habits of thinking and the organization. Generally, what we say, once you are into a research, you get the logics, right? In real life, we say, oh, be logical in your life. Be logical, be reasonable. Give me some solid reasoning for this, the kind of event if it is occurring. So once you are into a research, you look for the scientific findings behind it. You look for the scientific reasoning. You look for the logics behind that process. And if you are working in the field of the commerce or into the management, definitely it aids to the economic policy, and likewise solving various operational and the planning problems of the business and the industry, the people who are working into this, the business management. So what motivates you to into the research, like as a research scholar, as an academician, sometimes the people, they are having very, the high academic positions, but still they are into the research. Because for the students, there is a desire to get a research degree, and definitely it comes with the consequential benefits and desire to face the challenge. Some people, they like, the challenges in their life. So they are into the research, they are into the exploratory type of the research, where they try to explore the certain new things or to find the answers to the unsolved problems. They are into the caves, they are going to Himalayas, they are everywhere. So basically they are solving the unsolved problems, right? So they like challenges in life. That's why that is their motivation to get into the research. And then there are few people who are having curiosity about the new things, and they are into the research just for the intellectual joy of doing some creative work. So that's why they're into the research. And some people, they have the desire to be at the service of the society, like a social thinking, social awakening is there. And yes, desire to get the respectability. When you get that initial in front of your name, so yes, that motivates you to be at that certain position, to be into the research and to get that degree. So motivation is always there if you want to carry out the research. Now, the most important question, that is, what is research design? Let me tell you, basically, these are certain methods and the techniques, we can say the research methods or the methodology or the techniques or the tools which are chosen by the researcher to solve the research problem, right? It is just like, the blueprint of your house. You want to construct a house and you are having a blueprint for the same. You want to buy a new car, or you are having a blueprint of the same. So research design is the blueprint of your research, like what, when, where, and what is the route map, how you're going to proceed ahead with the methodology part, and what kind of tools or the techniques you are going to use. So that is the research design, right? So basically, when we are having a research design, it will help you to hone in various research methods, and those research methods which are suitable for the subject matter, and specifically set up their studies for the success. So if research design is there, definitely you will end up with some kind of, the feasible results in your hand, and you can move very smoothly in your research work. Otherwise, it is just like you want to construct your house and you don't have a layout or outline, or you don't have any blueprint, like from where to start, where to end, what thing is going to be where. So if you are not having any research design, that means you can't proceed ahead with your research process. So process of research, that I would say how it happens, what you need to know when you are into a research. First, you should have a problem. Like you need to decide the area of your choice. Like some people, they want to work on the pollution, they want to work on the, the food industry or the food processing. So in the area of your specialization, in the area, like you are from botany, zoology, you are from, the management, you are from the commerce, likewise you are from the pharmaceutical sciences. So accordingly, you need to decide what you want to do, like on the basis of your interest or on the basis of your, the academic position, or you can say in which area you are very strong. So you need to identify your strength, and likewise you need to identify your interest, and you have to start with a one problem or a one question. Then you need to decide the goals and objective. Suppose if I say you want to work upon the pharmaceutical pollution, the impact of the pharmaceutical pollution on the quality of the river water. So that is your question, that is your problem, right? Now you need to narrow down your research. You need to narrow down your research to a one specific area. Suppose if I say I want to work on the impact of the pharmaceutical effluents in district Baddi, or into some other, in the district Solan. So I need to narrow down my research. So I am having one thing in my mind. I want to work upon the pharmaceutical industries only. Then I will select one area, like this is the area where there is a hub of the pharmaceutical industries and they are carrying a very negative impact on the environment. So what kind of research I am doing, it should be beneficial for the society. Only then it matters, right? Then I need to set my goals and the objectives, like what I am going to study under my problem. Like I want to check the, the physical parameters or the chemical parameters or the biological parameters. I want to go for the process of the bioremediation. So likewise, I need to decide what are my goals and the objectives. So accordingly, once I have decided, see, I want to check the physical parameters. So accordingly, I will decide these are the methods which I'm going to use, like to check the pH or the temperature, the other parameters. So then I will be having the tools and the techniques for the same. And when the experimentation is over, I will be having the results with myself. So once the results are with me, that is not the, the final success of the research. See, the results are with me, but after that, I have to go for the interpretation and the analysis of the data. So only then I would be able to go for a very nice report writing, right? So this is the process of the research. You start with the research problem. You need to set the goals and the objective. Then accordingly, you decide your research design, like the methods or the techniques which you are going to apply. Then you will be having the results with yourself. Like if it is a field work, you are into a survey, again, you will be getting the information, and finally interpretation and the analysis of the data. So you can see this, the research process over here. It is in the form of a flow chart. So yes, there is a research problem. You can see over here. First, you need to define your research problem. Then you need to review the literature. Once you want to study, you need to review what others have studied. Like it is a research, like you are searching the same thing again and again, but you are looking at that one thing with a different perspective, and you will be coming out with the different kind of the results. Fine. So you need to have that research problem, but for that you need to study the review of the literature. And once you will study the review of the literature, you would be able to find out the gaps. And those gaps in the study of the previous researchers, those gaps are the basis of your research. And after that, you need to formulate the hypothesis. See, problem is a very big thing. If I say I want to study on the pharmaceutical effluents, so I can't study the the impact of the pharmaceutical effluents in India, right? In India. So accordingly, I need to narrow down my research. I need to go for the, the comparison, like before the pharmaceutical effluent, what kind of the water quality was there, and after the introduction, how much pollution is there in the river water, right? So I need to formulate one hypothesis so that I can get into the comparison and I can justify, see, these are the impact of the pharmaceutical effluent. I'm just citing it as a one example. Then after formulation, then you need to design the research. Like here, you need to decide if you are into experimentation, then you need to decide the kind of methods you are going to adopt. If you are into a field, into a survey method, or into the interviews, so accordingly you need to decide your, the way, or you need to decide your sample area, right? Then you are having the data collection, that is the execution part is there. Then after data, you have to analyze that data. Okay, so here while we analyze the data, here we go for the hypothesis testing, which we say whether it's a null hypothesis or the alternate hypothesis. So here we have to analyze our data, and after the data analysis, we have to interpret our data, and after the interpretation, we have to go for the report writing. So if the researchers, they are doing like they're writing their reports like before the results are there, before the analysis or before any kind of interpretation, trust me, they are not going to come up with a good kind of research work, and they have to change, because once we are having the analysis of the data, then only we would be able to write it perfectly. And this is what happens when you write a research paper, as our previous speaker said. While writing a research paper, the kind of things like you have to maintain the quality. So once you are into this report writing or into a dissertation or thesis, any kind of the research you are doing in your laboratory or into the field, right? So you need to present in a very effective way, and that depends upon the interpretation of the data and the analysis of the data. So research design, that plays very significant role. If you have chosen a wrong method or wrong techniques, then you wouldn't be able to get the correct information, right? So if any stage, if you feel like, you can say during the analysis of the data, you feel like the results, they are not good or something is wrong, that can be due to environmental factor, that can be human error, or the equipment error can be there, that which was not perfectly, the calibrated, or during the collection of the data. So anything may happen. So again, you need to get back and to see like whether you have chosen the right method or not, or you accordingly, you can change your methodology, right? So that you can get the effective results. Likewise, if you feel like after, the analysis, while you are interpreting the things, and you feel like interpretation is not leading somewhere, right? You're not getting, the results which you expected. See, when we formulate hypotheses, this is just an educated guess, like what would happen, under certain circumstances. So during the formulation of the hypothesis, I know this is going to happen, or the kind of results I'm expecting over there. But anyhow, during the interpretation, if I'm not getting those results, then trust me, I will get back to the research problem. Maybe I didn't choose the right, the research problem, or I didn't define it in a proper way. So again, I have to formulate the hypothesis, right? I hope this process, this is very much important. If every research scholar must know, this is the research process. These are the steps which he or she has to go through while carrying out any kind of research activity. And I always say, when you want to have an excellent research, you need to foster creativity. You need to be creative. Everything is there. Everything is there in the books, in the publication, research publications, in the library. Google has spoiled us. Just, add 1 or 2 words and you get a lot of information, right? But what most important in research, that is the creativity. You need to be very much creative, right? But for that, if we need to foster the creativity, we need to develop the knowledge, right? And that knowledge we can only get when we review the literature. And there can be exchange of ideas. Like we need to discuss with each other the kind of my research work with the like-minded people. We can discuss and we can come up with the different ideas, right? Or we can look at the same thing with the different ways or with the alternate ways. I may have a different perspective. Anybody can have a different perspective. So the discussions can be there. The idea generation can be there, or we can look at the same thing with the different perspectives. And we have a number of examples. It is not only in case of research. Like if you want to come up with something different, you have to think differently. And to think differently, you need to be, a very much creative. So how we can what is the role of the creativity? It is more than a logic. We say logic must be there. If it is a research, it should be logical, right? But it includes insight, it includes genius, groping, pondering. Like logic we can teach. Logically, when we do the things logically, that can be taught very easily. But that creativity, that art, it cannot be taught, right? So you need to carry that imagination power. You need to be very much intuitive, and you must be curious about the things if you want to foster the creativity in the research. There are people who keep asking, why, when, where, how. So those kind of curiosity, it can generate to new ideas, right? Or it can lead your research to some, a different level. So you allow your curiosity to grow. Write down whatever comes in your mind. Sometimes something, is happening in your mind. You need to note it down, because sometimes you say, okay, I will do it later on, but then you skip that part or you forget about that thing, right? So once you are into a researcher, there should be freedom from the distractions. You need to keep some time for yourself, think about it, keep your cool, and be creative, right? So when we say the two people, they are working in the same laboratory, so that is what makes a one person different from the others, and this creativity is the only difference between the satisfactory and the outstanding research. See, once you are into a research, definitely you will come up with some kind of results, and that can be satisfactory type of research. But once you are into a creative, so rather than using 2 parameters, you are using the 3 parameters, and you have already reviewed the literature, and you come to know, oh, this is the parameter which the earlier researchers didn't use. So I need to use this parameter. So I need to fill that gap. So that kind of creativity, or I can do it in a different way, right? So that creativity can lead you to the outstanding work, right? Rather than being the satisfactory research work. Now, the next is the literature survey. So how do we do the literature survey? We always tell our researchers, go to the library, search the Google, download the research papers and read it, like in the area of your interest. So basically, literature is the documentation of the comprehensive review of the published and the unpublished work from the secondary sources of the data. So the researcher, if they are reviewing the, the literature, that means that work is already investigated, right? And they need to find out what kind of investigations are further needed, right? So it gives the knowledge what others have found out and how they have done so. See, once you are reading a one paper, suppose if I'm working on some specific topic and I'm reading the work of the other researcher, I will come to know how they have done it, like the kind of methods or the techniques they have used, the parameters they have used. So accordingly, I can use my own brain. I can be creative and I can be, imaginative at the same time. And I can bring some, the different element into the same type of the research. So yes, while we study the literature, we say this is the critical analysis of the existing research work, right? So we analyze the things by using our own brain, right? So the gap in the literature, which we find out, okay, so this is what the other researcher has missed. So I would like to find that gap, and that gap in the literature, that is the justification for my research work. So the people, the students, the research scholars, what they do, they once read the literature and they get into the sleepy mode. They feel like, oh, okay, enough is done now. So we need not to study more literature. I have studied 30, 40, 50 or hundreds of the research papers. Trust me, like before the conception of the hypothesis, you need to study the literature, because accordingly then you can decide, okay, the kind of gap you have found out, and accordingly you will decide your research hypothesis. But yes, as the study period gets longer, you need to make sure that you keep in touch with the current and the relevant research in your field, because every day something is happening. Some new findings are there. I am delivering this lecture, but at the same time, the number of researchers, they might have published a number of the research paper in the relevant area, right? So it keeps on growing like anything. The research is like that kind of thing. right? So if I'm working on some specific area, the number of people, they are also working on the same area. So to upgrade your information, you need to be in touch with the current and the relevant research. And when at the third stage, when you are writing your thesis or a report, at that time, you need to relate your finding to the findings of the other researchers. There, the comparison can be there. And to correlate your findings, definitely you have to study the literature of the other researcher. Fine. So at the 3 stages, before the formulation of the hypothesis, then during your experimentation part, just to keep yourself updated with the current and the relevant research. And while finally you are writing your thesis, there you need to compare your findings with the work of the other researchers and to identify their implications for the theory, practice, and the research. So there also you need to study the review of literature. So you can see this picture shows a lot. So you can see this is the literature. So not something that you do now and forget about. Your field is constantly evolving and changing, right? So now you see, you keep yourself updated with the relevant literature in the field of your interest. Now, next is the formulation of the hypothesis. Like once we are having a problem, but how to formulate a hypothesis? Hypothesis, as I said earlier, it's a kind of educated guess, like what will happen under certain conditions, right? So that we know. So I have put one question over here, very simple question. Do plants need light to grow? This is my question. I want to convert this question into an hypothesis. So if green plants need light to grow, then only plants kept in the light will display growth, right? I hope you got it. So when we convert anything into the hypothesis, it is always about if and then, right? If we give this, this will happen. If we don't give this, this will happen, right? So it is always about if and then when we convert any problem into the hypothesis. So problem cannot be tested. Only hypothesis can be tested, because this is an assumption. This is an assumption like about the relationship between the two variables. So those that can be tested and that can be proved right or wrong. So that's why we always convert our problem into the hypothesis. Then we are having a problem statement, like how we write a problem statement. I have cited one example over here, the use of the graphic calculators in teaching algebra. So basically, I want to check whether the graphic calculators, they are very much helpful in teaching algebra, right? So I want to convert this question into a hypothesis. So what I will do, I have to do the comparison. So I have taken 10th class students and suppose there are 100 students. To the 50 students, I have given the graphic calculators, right? And to the 50 students, I told them they are not supposed to use the graphic calculators, right? So I have, converted my question into the comparative analysis, right? So where I have given like the one group of the students with the calculators and the others are without the calculators. So then I will check their performance, like how they perform in the final examination, like the students who were using the graphic calculator and who were not using the graphic calculator. So if I found out, if at the end, if I find out like the students who were using the graphic calculators, they are as equal to the students who were not using the graphic calculators. Like there is no difference in their achievement in algebra for grade, whether they are using it or not. Then I would say, okay, this is a null hypothesis. Null hypothesis means there is no difference between the observed and the expected value. So what I expected and what I observed. So there was no difference, right? So this is how we pick one question, problem, then we convert that problem or topic into one question, and then I have to convert it into a hypothesis. If I don't convert into a hypothesis, that means I can't go for the comparative analysis, right? So why do we need a research methodology? So the simple answer you can say, how did the researcher reach to decide? Like what data should be collected, what data should be avoided. So if I don't have any, the methodology, if any research design is not there, so as a researcher, I am totally blank. right? I'm aimless. I don't know this data, like what type of, the sample population I need to study, the data I should collect, and how to collect it, like the kind of methodology, what I need to, use over here, the technique I need to apply, right? And how to analyze it, like the kind of the statistical analysis I need to apply over here. So once I'm having a research methodology, I would be able to know all about this, right? So basically, this is the way to find out a solution to a problem, right? So the kind of method, the procedure we are using. So these are the some different types of the research or the methods that we are using. I will not explain it that much, but yes, I will take you through the types, right? So the descriptive research is there, analytical, exploratory, and the predictive research. See, mostly we are into this descriptive type of research. This is a survey kind of method. When we say, okay, the people, they are doing a descriptive type of research, that means the people, they are into the survey type of method, right? So in this complete surveys, there are different kind of inquiries. If I say what, why, when, how, where this is happening. So you need to draft all the question or questionnaire, and then accordingly you need to get the answers. So basically, this is the description of the characteristics of a phenomena at present. So currently what is happening, why, when, where, we need to get all the answers, right? So in this kind of research, the researcher doesn't have any control over the variable, right? So what is happening or what has happened, only they will report, right? So this is a survey kind of method when we go for the descriptive type of the researcher. And I have cited one example over there. Suppose in a simple words, if I say, if a researcher wants to check, is there any kind of, the relationship between the socioeconomic status and the performance of the professors in the university, right? So he or she will design a kind of questionnaire accordingly. And after the survey, the researcher can find out whether the higher socioeconomic status, that is equal to the higher performance of the professors, or the lower socioeconomic status results into the lower performance of the professor, or it can be vice versa, right? So this is like how we need to go for the descriptive type of the research. Then we are having an analytical type of research. In the analytical research, basically this is the analysis of the phenomena. So we are already having a data with us. So secondary data, like we can get the information. We need not to, like in the descriptive research, you need to perform some kind of experimentation, right? That can be the laboratory work, that can be the field work. So anyhow, you need to collect the data, right? But here in the analytical research, the data is already there. Like you can go to the hospitals, and if you want to check the impact of the COVID-19 on the lungs, so you can get to the hospital or to the clinic and you can get the data from there. Likewise, you can go to the Center Pollution Control Board. So in the analytical research, we are having the secondary data, right? So we just go for the analysis of the secondary data. So in this type of the research, the researcher use the facts or the information which is already available to them, and in order to analyze it so that they can make the critical evaluation out of it. So basically, this is the analytical part and the interpretation. So we don't collect the data in this. I have cited one example for the comparative analysis that you can see. In the descriptive research, what we ask, we will say, what is the absentee rate? What is the absentee rate amongst a particular group of the worker? But when we go for the analytical research, what kind of study we will do? We are already having the data with ourselves, like the absentee rate is there. Now, how can the absentee rate among the employees can be reduced? So when we go for the analysis of any kind of, the data, then we come to know, okay, these are the issues and how these problems can be sorted out. So in the analytical research, after the interpretation, we may come up with this certain kind of, the methodology, or the certain kind of, the ideas, like how we can nullify the problem, right? So this is the difference between the descriptive and the analytical type of research. Then we are having an exploratory research. Basically, this is where there are no previous studies or very less studies are there in the past. So there the researchers, they get into the exploratory type of the research. So once we are into this type of research, it leads to the generation of new ideas or the assumption, and sometimes it leads to the development of the tentative theories. But from the exploratory research, conclusions cannot be drawn, right? So, but it can give you the direction for the future research, and you can come up with the kind of methods and the techniques which you can use. But yes, it gathers information, preliminary information that will help you to define a problem or to suggest a hypothesis. But yes, exploratory type of research, it doesn't go to any, you can't draw any kind of conclusion from the exploratory research, right? But yes, once you are into this type of research, you can get an idea, you can get new insight, and you can design a new research problem or a hypothesis on the basis of the exploratory research. Likewise, we are having a predictive research or the diagnostic research. This is to predict something, the frequency with which this something is occurring or its association with something else. So in the diagnostic research, the researcher must be able to define clearly what he wants to measure, or must find adequate method for measuring it, along with the clear-cut definition of population he wants to study. So basically, it's a diagnostic type of research. And in this, we use various, the statistical tool, regression, linear regression, logistic regression. These kind of tools are used to predict the future of something. I have cited one example. Suppose if you want to predict the future of any college or a university, so a researcher will collect the information from the university in the form of number of students studying over there, the number of programs university is offering, how many students are passed, right? Fail percentage, what is the fail percentage, the kind of the awards or the recognitions won by the university or by the students. So number of the grades achieved by the students. So number of factors a researcher will collect, right? And on the basis of that, a researcher can predict the future of that university or college, right? How it is going to perform ahead in the future. So that kind of research or diagnostic research, that is very much helpful or supportive in predicting the future of the schools or colleges or some institutions or even the industries, right? So then we are having a qualitative and the quantitative research. In the qualitative research, we just deal with the qualitative phenomena. Like basically, this is used in the behavior sciences, right? So in this, the data is mostly in the form of the words, pictures, or objects. That's it, right? We don't use the numbers over here. But in the quantitative research, you see the data that is mainly in the form of a quantity or amount, right? So the data is the form of the numbers, or the statistical tools, they can be, applied. And this quantitative data, this is more efficient than the qualitative data, and this can be tested very easily. So in this quantitative, the researcher, they use certain tools like questionnaire or some kind of equipment to collect the information or the data. And yes, they study all the aspect before the data is collected, right? The kind of methodology they need to adopt. So quantitative data, that is mostly in the form of the statistics or the number, or it can be statistically analyzed. Then we are having a pure research and the applied research. Pure research, this is the people, they do it for the intellectual pleasure, right? It doesn't have any commercial value. There are people who are into the caves, they are going to the Himalayas. So yes, no commercial values is attached to this kind of the research. But yes, this research is very much, effective in setting up the new, the assumptions or the hypotheses. But as of now, pure research has limited direct applications. Okay. In the applied research, this is used, which is used to answer a specific question. Like there was a COVID, right? For the COVID-19, there was immediate, the solution came in the form of the, the Covaxin or the Covishield was there. So yes, applied research is done to find a solution to a problem, to immediate solution to a problem, right? So I can say this is an action-based research. So it aims at finding out the solution for the immediate problem facing in the society or in the organization. And through this, it's not like you are having a problem and immediately you are finding a solution for it. It is a systematic inquiry, but yes, it involves the practical application of the science, right? So main goal of the applied research is to improve the human condition, like to treat a specific kind of the disease, right? Then the next step is the research data analysis. See, data analysis, this is the process of inspecting, rearranging, modifying, and transforming the data to extract the useful information from it. Once we have collected the data through the survey method or through the experimentation in the laboratory, now it's time to arrange it perfectly. So it can be arranged, the data in the tabular form, or yes, the data can be arranged even in the form of the histogram or in the form of the pie chart. So this data analysis process helps in reducing the large chunk of the data into the smaller fragments. So which makes actually sense, right? So you're having a large number of data. So first you convert it into the form of in the tabular form. And from the tabular form, you can, if you want to check the comparative analysis, so you can convert your data into the form of a histogram or a graph where you can go for the comparative analysis. So first you need to organize your data, then summarization and the categorization accordingly in the tabular form. Okay. And finally is the data analysis, where you can use or apply the, the different tools, the statistical tool to analyze your data, right? So the last step is the interpretation and the report writing. Ryan Holiday, I have quoted one of the very, the important quote over here. Writing part of research is a lot like a military operation. It takes discipline, foresight, research, strategy, and if done right, ends in a total victory, right? So now you may understand why there is a need of the research design, because it is like a military operation, right? So once you're having a research design, you are going to be very much disciplined because you are having a blueprint of your research design. So you know the kind of method you are going to use, you know the technique which you're going to apply. And if you will do it in an efficient way, effective way, without any kind of, the error over there, definitely your research work will end into a total victory and you need not to repeat any kind of the experimentation. So finally, report writing is there, interpretation of the results. You need to write your report effectively as per your analysis, right? But while you are writing your research, you need to follow the ethical guidelines without any manipulation. You know what happens sometimes when our experimental part is there over and we are into this analysis part of the data. So certain kind of fabrication, manipulations the researcher do, just if the data doesn't fit into the range which they were expecting, right, during the hypothesis. So they do certain kind of manipulations and the fabrication of the data can be there. So that should not be there. If it is there, that means you are giving a wrong findings to the society. So which is very unethical, specifically in the field of the medical and the allied sciences, where the lives of the people, they are at stake. There you can't manipulate the data, right? So don't manipulate the data. If you didn't get the desirable results, it's perfectly all right. You go back to the previous step and see where you were lacking behind. There was some error in the data collection or some error in the methodology you adopted, and definitely you will find out the solution for that problem, right? So yes, while writing your report, you need not to steal the work of the others and you need not to manipulate any kind of information. You need to follow all the ethical guidelines. If desirable results are not obtained or you see any error in the result, go back to the previous steps, identify the problem, rectify the same. At least you will end up with the good type of the data, which is very much, the valuable, reliable, and which can be easily validated. So thank you so very much. I would like to end my presentation with the quote, "No research is ever quite complete," which I said in the beginning. research is circular in nature, right? So the moment you feel like I'm done with the experimentation, I have done my report writing, I have published my work, you will come up with number of questions in your mind, right? If you have chosen 10 parameter, you will come up with 3 or 4 new parameters which you would definitely like to apply, right? So yes, that's why it is research, because it is never complete. So thank you so very much. I hope you were able to understand what I conveyed today.
Thank you so much, ma'am. It was really a wonderful session. On behalf of students, participants, I would like to take some questions with your due permission. May I?
Yes, please, yes.
One of the participant named Abhishek Pandey is asking, do hypothesis is necessary in financial research?
Yes. Yes, hypothesis. See, I already mentioned, Abhishek, you can't testify any problem because that is the broader aspect, right? So to testify any problem, we need to convert it into the hypothesis. So in any field, whether it is a finance, whether it is a science, whether it's an engineering, in any field in the management, you need to convert your problem into the hypothesis, right? So if you don't convert into the hypothesis, it cannot be tested. So if you can't test it, you can't validate it. So your research will not be having any meaning, right? So yes, it is very much required in every aspect or in every field. We need to convert the problem or the statement into the hypothesis, right? Like we need to make some educated guess. So we need to have some light. We need to have some idea. It is an assumption. Hypothesis is an assumption. If we will not assume anything, Abhishek, then how we can go on that path, right? So we need to have that path where we want to reach. So that is the destination, and to reach that destination, we need a research design. But that research design we can only apply if we are having an hypothesis. And during the hypothesis, you will assume where you want to go, right? So yes, in the hypothesis, you decide your destination, and then we have that research design, that is the route map, that will support you to get your destination.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you for answering the question. The next participant, Praveen, is asking that he's having a lot of data, okay, in the Excel sheet form, and he's facing to analyze it. Like the data is more than thousands of Excel sheets. So he's asking a solution that how effectively he can analyze it without missing any important data, but also it should take less time.
Okay, so what was the name, Parveen?
Yes, Praveen.
Parveen, if you are listening to me, listen, Parveen, you need to convert your data first to arrange your data in the tabular form. If it is in the Excel sheet, so if you are testing the different parameters, I don't know what you are testing right now, but let me say if you are testing 10 or 15 parameters, right? So accordingly, you can make the different tables for the same, and first you need to categorize your data, right? So you can have 5 parameters in one tabular form, then make another table, then another table, right? So likewise, you need to convert your data into the tabular form. So first you need to categorize your data, then to arrange it into the tabular form. And if you are going for some kind of comparative analysis, so that can be, easily can be, compared while we are having the data in the form of the histogram, right? So yes, for the comparative analysis, I don't know whether you are doing some kind of comparison. See, in your finance field, I know if there is a comparison between the government or the private organization or government or private sector or different sectors. So accordingly, you can categorize your data into the form of the tabular form. Then after the tabular form, you convert your data into the form of the histogram. So there you can go for the comparative analysis. But yes, you need to decide which parameters you need to put into one table, which are closely related with each other. So that is the, the idea of, the convert your chunk of data into, into the smaller pieces and into a very effective way, right? So this you can do. So take your data from the Excel sheet, convert it into the tabular form. If he is there, he can ask me the question directly if he is there.
Ma'am, he must have joined through YouTube.
Okay.
So I
Okay.
guess he's not on Zoom. Yeah. Thank you, ma'am. We are almost done with the questions, and there are some questions which you have already covered in your PPT.
Okay.
So thank you so much, ma'am. Thank you for giving your valuable time. It was really a very wonderful session. Once again, thank you from Team Just Agriculture for giving your valuable time and answering all the questions.
Thank you, Dr. Utkarsha. It is always a pleasure to share my expertise through this platform. I think the Just Agriculture have patented me for this, the workshops and the expert talks. But anyways, it is always pleasure to share the information, and specifically with the young minds, because they are the curious mind. And I always say, if there is a curiosity, they can definitely end up into a the outstanding type of research. So thank you so very much. Thank you for having me. God bless you all. Thank you. Thank you everyone joining us today. Thank you.
Thank you all the dear participants for joining the session and listening to us patiently. We will meet tomorrow at same timing. Schedule will be shared by evening with you all. Thank you. Thank you once again.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, Simran ma'am.